Oh, I wonder if this week he's even coming. Tim and Joe may not be able to. Steve's funeral was today.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Well, I did, and I didn't get a call. Uh, I should have.
Well, we can't help it sometimes.
Okay. Guess she'll come in. Guess she's gonna be here. We got scared away by the weather, but it's all over now. I watched the news.
Oh,
It'll be pretty the rest of the week. But yeah, on the lawnmower this weekend.
look out.
All right, Dad, do these more prayer, please, before we get started.
Dear Lord, most precious, blessed Heavenly Father, we thank you for this privilege to study your word. We ask you to help us to glean lessons from it that'll help us in our everyday labors too. Be with the speaker and help him to say those things that will encourage us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right. Now, Jesus had finished this stuff about the guy who was possessed by a demon and they couldn't do it because they had a real meager faith. And so he says the Son of Man is going to be handed over to men and they will kill him and they will raise the third day. And they were deeply grieved. They still don't understand it, I don't think. But then they come to Capernaum in verse 24 of Matthew 17. Now, I'm going to look on my other tablet. And my other tablet, I'm going to see. Let me answer Tim first. Okay, now I'm going to look up exactly how much this is because this is a little cryptic for me. In Chrome, and somehow the weather channel, I don't know why. Okay, so let's look. Former. Okay, how much is a drachma worth? It is the equivalent of a worker's daily pay in the place where they live, which could be as low as $1 or as high as $100, depending on the country. Drachma in the Bible, the 4 drachma coin would be exactly enough to pay the temple tax. There's a lot usually about the Assyrian shekel. The coin that fits his mouth is generally seen as a symbolic act or sign, but there's little agreement concerning what it signifies. I don't think it's symbolic. So I'm not entirely sure what it is. So and its original value was equivalent to that of a handful of arrows. So it was kind of a maybe kind of a thing. Okay, uh, it didn't really have a fixed value. It looks like it is the temple tax or the poll tax. So maybe I should look up and see what that is because that seems to be kind of important here. ancient Greece also had distinctive names that they were used. So I can't even estimate the value. Now, it was also called many things. And interesting to note, though, there was always a foreign deity on it. Okay. Now, the way this silver drachma is approximately 4.3 grams, which isn't that much, or 0.15 ounces, very significant state for another. It was divided into 6 ovals of 0.72 grams, which were subdivided into 4 tetramoria of 18 grams, one of the smallest forms ever struck, approximately 5 to 7 millimeters in diameter. That's tiny. 5 to 7 millimeters. Okay, so let's look at what it is. So what I'm more concerned with than anything else is what is the temple tax? And I should have done this before. Okay. This is the tax on the Jews to pay for the upkeep and operation of the temple. So every Jew everywhere paid for it, and I'm wondering if they still do today. Now, anyways, everything I've looked at pays more attention to the fish than the coin. So the 2 drachma tax, which would be the 2 drachma tax, which would be equivalent to, if it was used, I don't think it's supposed to be used this way, 2 days' wages. But that's not a bad tax. If that's what I paid on April the 15th, I'd be thrilled. But that's not 2 days' wages. But it's paid only by the Jews. So here is the thing: if that's what the tax is for, and Jesus is preaching about a new age, and he's talking about the time when the priests and stuff are, so he obviously doesn't support the Sanhedrin because they hate him. He obviously has to support the priests and the Levites and the scribes. And so now they're asking something, and that's really, I don't think this is told to trap him. I think this they really want to know. Now, this is just my opinion. Because they're not in Jerusalem, they're in Capernaum, which is Jewish and Gentiles, is a port city. And the people who are responsible to collect this tax came to Peter and said, "Does your teacher not pay the 2 drachma tax?" So they did not have a record of either Peter or Jesus paying it, although I don't know that Jesus would pay his in Capernaum. Usually you went to your home city and paid taxes. His would probably be in Nazareth. But so Peter said, "Yes, of course." And then he really didn't talk to Jesus first, but Jesus knew what he said. So he goes in and he says, "What do you think, Simon? From whom do the kings of earth collect customs or poll tax? From their sons or from strangers?" Good question. We don't really have kings. I wonder if those people that do pay taxes. I wonder if the Queen of England pays taxes. She receives a bunch of tax money, but I wonder if she pays taxes on what she receives. And I'm thinking no, because I don't think she's given a salary. I think she just is kept very well. Hey, Kenny. Well, it was one of those text calls, so evidently you're on it again. Donna's in the hospital in ICU. She was taken yesterday. And she's taking that medicine she can only take when I see it. And that's what I was telling her about. Yeah, yeah, I know. She can only stay home. But she's probably okay. I haven't heard from her today. They keep her kind of busy up there, and I think they keep her pretty heavily drugged. But I'm planning on going up there tomorrow. Yep. Oh, that's fine. Appreciate it, Annie. No problem, buddy. I appreciate it. Thanks, Annie. Bye now. All right, now, Japan still has an emperor, and the Saudis have a real king. They actually have power. They are the government, and I doubt they pay taxes. Well, the Saudis have a king, and it was a lot like the kings of biblical days that we're talking about here. So I imagine that's what he's saying. Here in our country, everybody pays taxes. We're all old enough here. I was just a little kid. You remember when Nixon was president? Spiro Agnew, his vice president, had to resign because he had evaded his taxes. So our leaders all pay taxes. And in fact, isn't that a problem with Trump right now? Is he don't want to release his tax returns like everybody else does. I don't think it's a law that you have to if you run for office, but I think everybody kind of does it. And now they want it because now they're trying to find something against him or something. But he paid taxes. I mean, he filed his taxes, and Biden paid his, and Biden's children evidently paid theirs, and Trump's children evidently paid theirs because they're examining them too. So, we don't really understand this, but this thing, people with kings, their people don't pay any taxes. And in fact, what jump started kind of the French Revolution, I just taught this back in the early 1700s, or I mean late 1700s. The French helped us in our revolution, and then they got back home and told the people they wanted to do one too, so they chopped off the head of the king. But 97% of the people made up the taxpayers, and 2% of the people made up the nobles, and 1% made up the priests, and they paid no taxes. And that was one of the reasons why the French rebelled and revolted against the king. The king spent a bunch of money. The Louis at that time spent, if you have YouTube and all, this is worth it for you. Look up a French word called Versailles, Versailles, and look inside it. Louis XIV spent one half of France's gross domestic product, the entire wealth of the nation, on building that house for himself. Versailles. Just they have outside tours of it. The gardens are beautiful. They have inside tours of it. However, by Louis XVI time, he didn't have the juice, and so he got his head chopped off. People got sick of living in dirt floors and living with animals in their house and dying of cholera and smallpox and starving to death and watching King Louis and Marie Antoinette dancing and they didn't pay any taxes, and everybody else was sacrificing so that the king could have his. So they said from strangers, and he's right. Then the sons are exempt. It's a pretty good point, because who does the temple in Jerusalem belong to ultimately? God. Jesus is the Son of God. Should he really have to pay taxes? But to keep that from being a thing, so he said, however, so that we do not offend them, go to the sea, throw in a hook, and take the first fish that comes up. When you open its mouth, you'll find a stater, which is a 4 drachma coin, I just looked up. And take that and give it to them for you and me. And it's interesting you didn't pick the other disciples, but I don't think they were from Capernaum. Peter was. And then Jesus was mentioned in it. So here is what I can get out of that. I'm not gonna make a lot about the fish, because if Jesus could raise the dead, he could put a coin in a fish's mouth for Peter to hook. So that's, to me, that's a miracle, but it's not a profound one. I mean, compared to the rest of them that Jesus do, I can certainly see how this would happen. But just in my little bit that I was looking through the internet for what this drachma thing was, this 2 drachma tax, I thought, these people are all concerned about this fish. I don't have any problem with the fish. I mean, it's pretty easy to remember. If you're going to have faith in Christ, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to believe that Jesus could make a coin appear in a fish's mouth. Or even make a fish go down and pick up one off the floor of the ocean. There's all kinds of stuff down there.
They prepared one for Joe.
Yeah. I mean, this is not that. I don't want to, criticize Jesus' miracles, but this is not a huge one, But he does say in verse 27, however, so that we do not offend them, go get this fish with a gun and pay it for you and me. So I'm wondering, Jesus doesn't care what anybody thinks, usually. But he kind of does here. I would say if it was scribes and Pharisees, Jesus probably wouldn't have paid it, just telling this whole business about the sign, the taxes, and the strangers. But these guys don't seem to be, they seem to actually be wanting to know, does your teacher pay the tax? They never respect that. I mean, they're in charge of taking it, they're in charge of taxing it. For the temple, these are not tax collectors like Matthew that collect taxes for the Romans. These are Jewish tax collectors, and I would imagine it's pretty well voluntary. They probably get up in temple and say, oh, we ought to pay the tax, and it's the right thing to do. But I doubt too many people show up with their armies to get this 2 drachma tax out of people. It's pretty much voluntary, and I bet there were people that just didn't pay it. That's just my guess. But why does Jesus do it? He doesn't want it to become a thing. He doesn't want it to become a thing. Now I'm going to use an illustration, Sandy, that you know nothing about. I know Dad doesn't know anything about it. I was a real big fan of the Harry Potter movies that you don't know anything about, right?
Oh, yeah, I've been watching.
You watched them?
Mhm.
Until
Somewhat.
it came to the last 2 movies. Both the Deathly Hallows, the last 2, where Ron and Hermione and Harry look for the Horcruxes in those tents.
Mhm.
I like the end battle between everybody in Voldemort and how Dobby was the one that beat them all because he was the most powerful wizard there. Turns out he was a slave for a long time. But, and it kind of ticked me off when he died. But the kids said, oh, I love the last 2. I said, I didn't like the last 2. I said, why? I said, well, they were full of teenage angst. Little petty squabbles among the 3 teenagers that were there. I say, I live that every day. When I come here every day, and y'all tell me, I say, I try to be sympathetic. But when y'all tell me what's up with you and this and that and the other, and then, I try to be supportive. I said, but I don't want to pay to watch a movie where there's a bunch of kids that get mad because, oh, you're with my girlfriend. And you know how it went, with Harry Potter. You're with my girlfriend. I didn't like it. Maybe you like her and stuff like that. I deal with that every day at school. Well, the thing is, Jesus is under so much criticism by so many other things that are perfectly legitimate on his part. Maybe he just doesn't want another one over something silly like 4 drachmas. He doesn't want it to become a thing. You know what I'm talking about. It becomes a thing. I did this in church one time. I may have done it here. I don't know. Something that Kim is really upset about. Nah, I kind of am too. When I moved here, there was a picture of Jesus in the office. And I think it had become a thing before. Well, it was black velvet art, which, was not beautiful, but, you know. Anyhow, somebody got the idea. They hung it up in the church building, I think, many years before I got here, and somebody took it down and said, you can't have graven images or something like that. And so I made mention of the fact, I didn't know any of this. I made mention of the fact that maybe I just, it was in the office and getting in the way. So I said, it was just in between my two file cabinets and I wanted to refresh it. So I said, let's just hang it back up. Well, after a while of me saying that, nobody hung it up, but somebody stole it. It's gone. Don't know where it is. Somebody took it, so we couldn't ever hang it back up anywhere in the building. So, and have those graven images. But we put up other pictures. Basically, if anybody wants to put up a picture, they can. I don't care. Mother's pictures are in the bathroom and in the front, the foyer. I want to put a mural in the. The thing is, somehow the black velvet picture became a thing. The cross over there. I was so happy when Pam and Johnny were here and they hung that up. So that it didn't become a thing, and it was Elma Jean. So so yeah, let's leave it up. So we left it after she passed away. And I don't think there's anything wrong with hanging up stuff. Even in here what is this place called, this room here? Um, you know, and I'm asking because I really don't know. This is where we sit and worship. Now, we usually call it an auditorium,
Well, sanctuary.
sanctuary.
Mhm.
I had a professor at Harding that mixed the two together, and he called it the sanctorium, which I thought was pretty good too. I don't think it matters. It's a room. Abbassiamo now has left the Washington Point Church and has started working in a church across town, and they don't have a building. I watched some pictures of them doing worship, and it's outside around a tree, in
You can
chairs.
look 'em up.
Huh?
You can look 'em up.
No,
Oh.
he sent me I can show it to you after. It's on WhatsApp. You have it on your phone? You can talk to him if you want.
Well, my phone's outside. I don't know how many minutes I got on it.
Oh, well, don't worry about that. This is text. Our Wi-Fi is free. But I text Tom and Abbassiano on mine all the time because, anyway, he sent pictures through that. What are you gonna do if you have a church and a house and they already have pictures of it, Look for even religious pictures. I think just about everybody's been to the church has a religious picture or two up in their house. Anyway, I guess somebody got rid of that black velvet painting so it wouldn't be a thing. When I was in Kentucky, somebody gave us a very pretty artificial art building. It was over 100 years old. It could have been absolutely beautiful in Kentucky, but they didn't have that much money, and it was really tacky. I wish they had gone down to the Bearwood, but they put a tacky red carpet with runners in it. It was so old. I wish they'd just sanded them down and had, the real floors that were in there. But it was we did everything in that building just to make it uglier. And but what I'm saying is we had some flowers. Well, I stuck them here, right here.
Uh-huh.
Well, that became a thing with one lady, and she wanted to move. And you can't have them on the Lord's table, which they bought the Lord's table. It wasn't it's the church's table, but it's just a table. Can't have it there, So I kept, every time she'd bring it up, I'd walk away because I put it there. And I knew that most people would say, well, Joe put it there. He's the one to take it down. So I'd walk away and nobody else said anything about it. But she caught somebody that she could bully.
Oh, wow.
And he put it away, he threw the flowers in trash, and I said, why'd you do that? Well, she asked me to. It's not that you just scared of her is what happened. You got mad at me about that. But it was the one pretty thing we had in that building. And anyhow, that became a thing. And there's a lot of stuff that becomes a thing. The church our preacher told me this years ago, the church in Daytona, when they first decided that you could have a piano at a wedding. That's okay. One guy said, they put that piano in that wedding, I'm gonna come in there with an axe and bust it right in the middle of that wedding. And so the preacher said, don't do that. He put a
Feel
big,
that way.
he put a great big deacon in the choir to make sure he didn't come in there and do that. He never did. But it became a thing, you know? So I guess what I'm trying to say is this, from G, and I'll probably say it again at Sunday, because you probably never want to make a thing, but look at the people here that do. Don't just make a thing. You know? Don't just make a thing out of everything. And, you know, there's no point.
Mhm.
And if you can get by with it, just leave it alone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if it's one of those things that are okay either way, then just let it go. You know, if it's worth making a big deal about, make a big deal about it. But if it's not, don't make a thing. Jesus looks at this, and plus, this is money. That's all it is. And it's free money. You gotta have a fish's mouth. I guess it costs more for the fish than anybody else, but so just do it, and we won't ever have to. And it's never brought up ever again. In fact, he doesn't. I don't think Jesus has ever criticized or encouraging people not to pay the poll tax ever again. There may be something that sounds familiar in his trial, but it's not really, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. You know. Okay, let's quit here because we'd have to go into chapter 18 next time. Do you have annotations on?
Number 78.
What?
78.
78. Okay. You don't have to stand. You can stand if you want. I'm going to stand because I'm always standing. But we'll sing one verse of this. Go ahead. Yeah.
Is it for me, dear Savior, thy glory and thy rest? For me so weak and sinful, oh, shall I be so blessed? O Savior, my Redeemer, what can I but adore? And magnify and praise thee, and love thee evermore.
Shall we pray? Almighty God and Father of all, we thank you for this day. Father, we pray that you'll be with Donna. She gets better in the hospital. That you'll bring her back one day to much wanted help that she needs. Please continue to care for us. Be with us always. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Should have said to be with the Burnett family too. Steve was a friend. He didn't really come since I've been here. He'd been here for years before. And he moved away, and he kind of came back to being kind of a nice guy. He and Joe spent a lot of time together. They went up there when Joe was out of work and paid him to work in his company and things like that. So they're probably having a bad time. So being fair for Steve's family. His children actually grew up here, and I don't know if you remember, Amanda and Rod and their two little kids came here for a while. And that was his daughter, and the other one was Sheila, and you probably don't know her. Anything else we talked about? Super Sunday is Sunday. It's the end of March.
I know.
It's odd to me. No, it's just odd that it's at the end of March. Like this year is just flying by. I always said when the time changes, school year's about over, and it is. I'm already trying to make plans to hurry up things and get rid of things so that I can get to. I'm supposed to get to the fall of the Soviet Union, and I am in the middle of the Industrial Revolution right now, and the horrible things they did to kids. I just can't do.
I want to get out of that.
I can't get away from that. I want these kids to know it. You'd be surprised how few of them know exactly how much trouble unions were to bring in. Exactly how much trouble they caused, but they were so needed when it happened. It's, I still think they're needed, but I think there's so greedy people around who take advantage. But that's just me. but I can't rush over it because I want these kids to know it so they can go on and be adult. I want to try to make them adults and learn enough history to be adults. And I don't seem to be able to get fast enough. So that's just me, and that's my own personal burden. Steve, pray for Donna and anyone else. We need to talk about anything else, Mike?
I just want to Steve's funeral today.
Yeah, at noon.
That was awful.
I was wondering where Ken was.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm fixing to call her to see how it went today.
I'm so sorry. It's sad, it's sad.
I didn't turn on any air or heat. I didn't know what to do.
Ready for the lights?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
It's still light enough for me to see.